The internet can be a treasure trove of chilling tales, but some stories stand out as profoundly disturbing, leaving us questioning the darkness lurking in everyday life. Tonight, we delve into 3 unsettling Reddit posts that reveal just how close danger can come, even in the most mundane moments. Our journey begins with a heart-stopping encounter on the open road, where a stranger's request for a ride might have ended in unspeakable horror. Next, we take to the skies, exploring the terror of a mother whose flight became a nightmare when a stranger tried to take her baby. Finally, we unravel the haunting reality of a young person betrayed by those they trusted most, their parents, when they sided with the very person stalking them. Prepare yourself for 3 true accounts that blur the line between the ordinary and the terrifying, leaving behind questions that may never have answers. So, a little background here. My father was in the Army for 21 years, retired, and moved to a very small town in Central Florida. He got bored after a couple of years, and even though we didn't need the money between his retirement and what my mom was making as a bookkeeper and a tax prep, he wanted to go back to work. He started working at various gas stations, and it being a small town, the owners wouldn't care if I came there and helped him out with stocking the coolers, or even running the register, as long as I didn't sell any beer or smokes. This all took place in the late 80s and early 90s. The actual story I'm gonna tell took place in 1990, and I remember the date well because it was shortly after my birthday, and being 15 in Florida, I had just gotten my learner's permit, and my dad would let me drive him to and from work just to get some experience on the road, both at day and at night. I was sitting in my usual spot at a table that was set up along the windows, book in hand, feet propped up, and a Mountain Dew on the table along with some snacks. I would generally spend most of the evening that way, reading books, getting up to run the register, stock the cooler at different times. I remember glancing up because something caught my attention that was unusual, and I realized that a lady was walking up our parking lot from the direction of the interstate. The gas station was right on I-75. This in itself was really strange, because where we were located, you didn't get many people walking, and definitely not walking from the direction of the interstate. I figured she had broken down somewhere and was coming to use the phone to call for a tow truck or something. I was completely wrong. She came into the store, looked around for a few minutes, and I remember getting just a strange and creepy feeling about her. She walked up to the counter and started telling my dad a story about how she had gotten stranded and needed a ride up to the next big town up north from us. Ocala was the town. This is important. My dad lets her know that he's working and there is no way that he can take her. She turns and looks at me, and while she is looking away from him, my dad catches my eye and subtly shakes his head no. I was confused for a second, but then she turns back to my dad and points at me, asking if I can take her. My dad responded back that I only had a learner's permit and wouldn't be able to drive her anywhere and then drive back. Normally, I would have done it, even though it was illegal, because I'd done it a few times before already. I didn't argue with my dad, since this was completely out of character for him. He was normally chatty with the customers, but for whatever reason, he was almost curt and dismissive of her. Turns out, he had a bad vibe about her from the minute he had seen her walking up the drive. Well, she cusses him for a minute, and he basically tells her to get out of the store. She slammed the door open. I thought the glass was going to break from how hard she had slammed it, and then she stalks out of the store and down the driveway. I keep an eye on her and continue to watch as she makes her way back up to the interstate and then starts up the northbound on ramp. Almost a year passes, and I'm in my bedroom, less than a week before my 16th birthday. I hear my dad yelling from the living room, "Son, get your ass in here and look at this." I quickly run to the living room and see my dad pointing at the TV and look at the mugshot of the lady up on the screen and immediately remember the lady who had been in the store. Turns out I almost gave a car ride to Aileen Wuornos, who was later convicted of being a serial murderer and then later put to death. Still have nightmares about what could have happened. This story captures a chilling near miss with one of America's most infamous serial killers, Aileen Wuornos. The narrator's recounting of the event is a powerful reminder of how small, seemingly ordinary decisions can have life-altering consequences. The father's instincts and subtle protective actions stand out as the pivotal factor in averting what could have been a disastrous encounter. His ability to read the situation and act decisively, even if it meant being uncharacteristically curt, likely saved his son's life. The detail of the woman's behavior, the unsettling vibe she gave off, her anger when denied a ride, and her boldness in pointing to the narrator as a potential driver underscores the danger. These small but vivid details make the story feel immediate and real. The revelation almost a year later that the woman was Aileen Wuornos elevates the story from eerie to outright terrifying, highlighting how close the narrator came to unimaginable danger. I've flown with my 1-year-old solo nearly a dozen times. Usually people are understanding kind about me having a baby on my lap, and overall, he's a happy, easy baby. He's also very cute, so it's not uncommon for strangers to talk to him. Usually, I don't mind. The last trip I took, I sat alone in my aisle, with a man sitting by himself directly behind me. My baby was tired and fussing. I knew he was tired, but there's not a lot I could do until after we took off. Right out the gate, the man behind was talking to my baby, saying, "Oh, hi baby, why sad baby? Cute baby." I smiled and replied that he was tired. "Sorry for the fuss. Thank you." After takeoff, I started to get him settled for a nap. The man behind us continued to talk to my baby, putting his hand through the seats to try and grab his feet. Multiple times, I asked him nicely to please stop. My baby was tired. "You're distracting him. He just needs a nap." Finally, I set my baby down next to me. He stood on the floor facing the seat next to me so that I could make a bottle. The man behind me stood up and reached over my seat to pick him up. I immediately leaned forward to pick up baby, saying, "No thank you, I don't need help." The man pushed me back into my seat while mumbling, "Sweet baby, why baby cry?" I replied very loudly, "No," and quickly picked up my baby. I thought that was the end of that. I was wrong. I tried to rock my baby to sleep, while desperately trying not to lose my cool. As I'm rocking baby, the man behind me reached through our seats to grab my arm, saying, "No rocking, you make him cry." I pulled free from him and yelled, "Do not touch me," again. I thought that'd be the end. I started rocking baby for a second time. This time, the man behind me reached both hands around either side of my seat to hold me in place, saying, "No, no rocking. Stop rocking." I am somewhat embarrassed that I completely lost it, clutching my baby to my chest while struggling to get free of him. It hurt. I hit the call light while screaming, "Let me go." He was still holding me by my arms when the flight attendants came running. I could barely get anything out to the flight attendants. Everyone around us was staring. I was sobbing, and all I could get out was that I could not sit there anymore. And for the love of God, please move me. The man behind me tried to move with me, but I told the flight attendants that I did not know him and he could not come with me. I had a good cry in my new seat, but my baby immediately went to sleep. I was moved to be next to the flight attendant seats. After calming down, I explained to the flight attendants what had happened. Multiple times, the man that had been behind me got up to try to come back to my new seat, only to be turned around by one of the flight attendants. Towards the end of the flight, one of the flight attendants told me that they'd explained everything to the pilot, and the pilot had called the FBI and local police to escort the man off the flight. I would also be escorted off, as well as everyone around us that had watched everything happen. He cheered as he was escorted off. I had to interview with the FBI and nearly missed my next flight. After my trip was done, I had to fly back going through the same airport. It was stressful and emotional to say the least, even knowing that he was banned from the airline and the airport. I haven't flown since. This account highlights the harrowing and deeply unsettling experience of a young mother traveling with her baby, exacerbated by the inappropriate and invasive behavior of a fellow passenger. It underscores the vulnerability of parents traveling alone and the importance of maintaining boundaries in shared spaces like airplanes. The incident escalates from mildly intrusive behavior, talking to the baby despite polite requests to stop, to outright physical aggression, which is shocking. The man's actions, such as reaching over to grab the baby and physically restraining the mother, are not only inappropriate, but also threatening. The mother's increasing desperation and eventual breakdown are entirely understandable in such a tense situation. This story also demonstrates the critical role of flight attendants in ensuring passenger safety. Their quick intervention and decision to involve law enforcement were crucial in de-escalating the situation and protecting the mother and child. The mention of the FBI's involvement highlights the gravity of the man's actions and the potential legal consequences of violating personal boundaries and causing harm on a flight. Finally, the lingering emotional toll on the mother, including her hesitation to fly again, emphasizes how traumatic such incidents can be. It serves as a stark reminder of the need for stronger awareness and enforcement of safety protocols to prevent and address harassment in public spaces. This happened in 1978, but I may never recover. If it had happened in the era of stalker awareness, I would have been terrified. First, some backstory. I was adopted, which isn't a bad thing, except that my parents had wanted a perfect dream, Barbie doll. Daughter and I was supposed to live out their script. They were very controlling and coupled with alcohol abuse. By the time I was a teen, the breach was so bad I wasn't living in their house most of the time. I'd try to move back and fix things, but it never worked. What finally broke my back was a guy I'll call Rich. Rich called my house one afternoon and asked for a date. I told him I didn't know him, true, and that I wasn't allowed to date, also true. He seemed annoyed because I didn't know who he was. I'm on the student council. I am head of our junior achievement club. Big deal, so what? I asked how he got my number because it was unlisted, and he said he volunteered in the school office and pulled my number from student records. That should have been my first clue. But remember, I was only 15. Anyway, I told him no and hung up, thinking this was the end of it. The next day, I get home from school and find Mom all excited. She's gotten a call from El Creepo and his mother and was so impressed that she decided I could go out with him. His mom was going to pick us up and bring me home, so it was okay. I told her I didn't even know the guy, but she thought this was so sweet that he had his mother introduce him. We went out for pizza and a movie, and I thought he was a nice enough guy, but I really wasn't interested in him. However, he decided this one date meant I was his girlfriend now. He was aided and abetted in this by my mother, who thought he was perfect and just what we always wanted for you. Explaining to her that I wasn't interested in him just brought up a monologue about what a great guy he was, what a good family he comes from. Why would I rather be home reading a book than out having a good time? Telling her I didn't have a good time didn't compute in her brain. I never got to see my other friends because he was monopolizing all my time. Weekends, I had to go to his house for dinner and watch TV. First, we watched The Love Boat. Then, we watched Fantasy Island, and I had to endure his siblings running around the living room flapping their arms and yelling, "The plane, the plane." I wish I was making this up. On Saturday and Sunday, we played Atari at his house. At least he had good games. Sunday mornings, as soon as Rich wakes up, he calls me. I tried telling him I wasn't interested in a relationship and I didn't want to see him anymore. He started to freaking cry. I had to shake his hands off me. While I was walking home, he called Mom in tears to tell her goodbye. And I guess I just didn't love her enough. And the psycho blasted me when I walked in the door for being so mean to this sweet guy. He quickly learned the way to force me out on dates was to ask in front of her, because she would roll over any excuse I came up with. He began trying to get rid of my friends by complaining that they don't like me, true, and asked Mom to make sure they weren't invited over when he was there. My friends either didn't like him or were a bad influence on me. He griped about my clothes and makeup. He hated lipstick especially. I told my mom, thinking she'd agree how stupid this was. But when I got dressed for school the next day, she blew up. "What are you doing with that makeup on? Rich told you he doesn't like that. You get in there and wash your face." I was flabbergasted, but said hell no to both of them and wore whatever I liked. He'd scowl and screw his face up into the ugliest sneers, saying I look like a streetwalker over lipstick, eyeshadow, and mascara. "A girl your age has no business wearing a bikini. That top is too low cut. Why don't you show some self-respect?" I was the flattest of flat-chested girls. I wish he'd been really abusive, because then my parents would have agreed to get rid of him. But he was an honor student, from a good family, not a troublemaker. At school, the teachers liked him, and although the other kids thought he was a #1 nerd, didn't bully him because he stomped everybody's behind academically. I don't know why he fixated on me. Maybe because I was the shyest kid in school. He never hit me or was verbally abusive. I just couldn't peel him off. Christmas was the worst. He gave me a list. This is what he wants for Christmas. This is what his sister wants for Christmas. This is what his mother wants for Christmas. He expected me to buy gifts for his family. I wasn't even planning to get him anything, and he wanted an Atari game. We couldn't afford an Atari system for ourselves, but Mom of course buys it for him. She gets everything on the list and tells me to hush, because they're getting me something too. I asked Rich for a gift certificate to the bookstore, but his mom says gift certs are tacky. They will get me a real gift, so I'm thinking something cool. He gets me, I kid you not, a set of ladies' handkerchiefs. I saw them 2 for $5 at Kmart after he demanded an Atari game. His sister gets me nothing. His mom buys me a football jersey. I am not a football fan, like the one Rich wears. Mom goes gaga saying how cute that will match, and be sure to wear it next Friday so they'll see how much I like it. I quietly throw it away. I blasted my parents for manipulating and interfering and moved out again. They gave Rich my new address and phone number. I moved and changed numbers again and didn't give them the number. He had Mom go to one of my friends and wheedle it out of her. I almost got fired from a job because he wouldn't stop calling me. He waited for me outside the door of my work and followed me, begging and crying. He followed another guy I was dating and tried to convince him we were engaged. I called the cops, but they said he wasn't breaking any laws and even lectured me for not being forceful enough. Sometimes he would disappear for a few months, but always turned up again. My roommate came home from work one day to find him mowing the lawn at the duplex we were renting. At this time, the word stalking didn't exist, or I would have been terrified. The harassment ended only when I moved out of town. I went back for a family funeral and found he had gone to pay respects and introduced himself to everyone as my boyfriend. Ick. I told everyone if they told him where I was living, I'd shoot them first and him second. I never went to my high school reunions because I was afraid of seeing him there. I wonder sometimes if he ever got married. I feel sorry for the girl if he did. This Reddit post is a chilling account of an obsession that spiraled out of control, compounded by a lack of societal understanding and legal recourse for stalking during the 1970s. At its core, the story reveals the horrifying consequences of emotional manipulation, both by the stalker and the protagonist's own parents, who enabled and even encouraged the harassment. Rich's behavior escalated from seemingly harmless persistence to full-blown obsession. His initial act of obtaining the protagonist's unlisted number from school records was not only unethical, but also a glaring red flag. However, in an era when stalking was not widely recognized as a crime, such actions were often dismissed as overzealous romantic gestures rather than invasive and dangerous behavior. The protagonist's parents, driven by their desire for a perfect relationship for their daughter, became complicit in the ordeal. Their willingness to disregard her autonomy and boundaries enabled Rich's behavior, forcing her into a dynamic where she was effectively trapped. This lack of support highlights the insidious nature of parental control and how it can exacerbate a victim's vulnerability. Rich's manipulation tactics, crying to gain sympathy, monopolizing her time, and alienating her from friends, are textbook examples of emotional abuse. His ability to sway the protagonist's parents with his polished image further isolated her, leaving her without allies. The protagonist's struggles to assert her independence were met with resistance not only from Rich, but also from those who should have protected her. This story also underscores the broader societal failure to address stalking at the time. The protagonist's attempts to seek help from law enforcement were met with dismissal, reflecting the pervasive ignorance surrounding stalking as a serious issue. Without legal protections, victims like the protagonist were left to fend for themselves, often resorting to drastic measures such as moving away to escape their harassers. The aftermath of this ordeal is equally haunting. The protagonist's decision to avoid high school reunions and the lingering fear of encountering Rich speak to the long-term psychological impact of stalking. While the story ends with her gaining some semblance of freedom, it also leaves behind an unsettling question. How many others might have endured similar fates in a time when their voices were ignored? Thank you for watching and sticking with us through these chilling tales. Each story reminds us of how seemingly ordinary situations can take unexpected, terrifying turns. From the unsettling actions of a stranger on a flight, to a father's protective instincts saving his son from a dangerous encounter, these experiences are a sobering reminder to trust our gut and stay alert. The situations in these stories may feel like something out of a movie, but they happen to real people, and that's what makes them so haunting. Whether it's dealing with an invasive stranger, escaping a dangerous interaction, or realizing too late how close you came to harm, these moments stay with you long after they're over. If these stories resonated with you, or if you have your own eerie experiences to share, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more unsettling and true tales. Stay safe, trust your instincts, and always be aware of your surroundings, because you never know what might be waiting just around the corner. Until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.